Well, and I'm just really technologically inept. If I
Oh,
had my
that's
husband home, he would understand more of what you're saying.
Yeah, that's
But I
fine.
have no idea.
Perfectly fine.
One of those people, I show up and I talk.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do
That's all you need. Yeah, I'm hearing the good quality here. I'm hearing the good quality audio. I am really tired, okay? I'm sorry.
No, it's good.
Fear of success and fear of failure. How do you distinguish the two?
So typically we see that people fall into one or the other bucket when we're working with them. Now, it can get a little blurry depending on the scenario. It can be very scenario based, but at our core, typically feel like they're either too much or not enough, and they fear failure or they fear success. So the people who really struggle with low self-belief don't feel like they are enough, and they feel incompetent, incapable, and again, just all under the guise of low self-belief. We find that they really struggle with that fear of failure because deep down they don't believe that they're capable enough. And then the opposite is fear of success, where you typically have high self-belief but lower self-worth. And a lot of your pain has come from social pain versus capability. So you believe in your capabilities, but you struggle socially or have been villainized socially even because of your capability. So you start to fear success because you know that it's going to change the relationships around you. You know that you can't take everyone with you. You know that you're going to lose love. And so typically fear of success is tied to losing or shifting relationships. Or there's this piece of you that deep down maybe doesn't know if you're capable of sustaining the level of success you're gunning for. But that's a little more surface level because that just comes with building the identity along the way.
What would cause someone to have such a low self-worth that they don't believe in themselves? Because I feel like if you have a good enough self-worth, then you'll have the self-belief that you can get something done.
Everyone is different.
Yeah, right.
You can go deep down into childhood, and sometimes we see my partners that I work with, Kevin and Alan, they had very challenging childhoods. Whereas I had a very beautiful childhood and still have high self-belief and low self-worth like them. So it's hard to say, and it can be from any moment. It doesn't have to necessarily be this deep, dark, traumatic moment in your childhood. It could just be a moment where maybe you didn't feel worthy because you really wanted your dad's attention in that moment and he had to go to work. And you didn't understand. You didn't have the conscious capability to understand yet. So the root cause is a pretty individualistic deep dive journey. So it's hard to talk about that on a macro level.
Yeah. What about in relation to the three core wounds that you told me about?
So in certain forms of therapy, we have 3 buckets of core wounds where, again, the title, don't get married to the title. It does not mean that this is true about you if you fall into these buckets, but it's unlovable, unwanted, and defective. And so again, on a macro level, we can piece people into these buckets based on their fear of success, their fear of failure, how they feel about themselves versus the world, where their self-worth is at and such. And then within those 3 categories, there's a lot of nuances within each one. But again, just from the macro, defectives typically have low self-belief. They struggle with competence. And again, doesn't mean you struggle with competence on a scale of any sort. It's just what you believe about yourself. It doesn't mean you actually are incompetent. It doesn't mean you're actually defective. It's these deep-rooted beliefs in ourselves that are very, very deep, deep down in the brain. And they really value significance. So it's really important for someone in that bucket to understand where they're looking for significance and if that's a positive root or if it's a negative one, if it's aligned with their goals or if it's not. And then, of course, you can guide it from that space of awareness versus having it unconsciously run you all the time, which I think is the beauty of any of this work. All of this deep work, this core wounds, core beliefs, core values, they're all there. So when we learn what they are, we can stop allowing them to run us unconsciously and we get to make a more empowered choice. We get to learn about that piece of ourselves and then guide it in a way that is more aligned with our core aspirations, our goals, and the things that we want out of life. Unlovables deeply fear losing love. They do. They will dim, they will appease, they will mold, they will become the people who they feel they need to be to keep the relationships around them. And a lot of their pain is very social pain. Same with the unwanteds. The unwanteds and the unlovables overlap a little bit because it's a lot of social pain, but the unwanteds feel unincluded. in society. They deeply want to be wanted, but not needed. That's a through line. Whereas the unlovable, you can need us all day. I say us because that's the bucket that I am in. I am deep in the unlovable bucket. And again, the thing is, we have all three. It's just a matter of percentages. So that's a really fun journey when you get to decide and help someone understand what their main core wound is, what that percentage looks like and how it's running them, and then what the underlying two are and how that shows up sometimes. But typically everyone has a main one and then a certain percentage of the other two. And it's really fun and complex when you get someone with more equal ratios of all three. That gets wild. But then you get people who, like myself, are like 90% plus unlovable, and I touch in on the defective, and I have the smallest amount of unwanted ever. I don't feel unwanted at all. I feel very sought after, but I don't feel very understood or deep down loved. I crave unconditional love, and just because I'm wanted by people doesn't mean that they deep down actually get to know me and want to love me for who I am. Whereas the unwanted just want to be included. They don't feel like they're sought after whatsoever. And so they typically, so unlovables need to lean into courage. Your superpower is going to be leaning into courage, especially social courage, to be who you are authentically and allow the relationships to lay where they are when you stop appeasing to them. And that can be a really painful cycle to go through because some people fall away when you stop appeasing to them, when you start holding boundaries, when you start increasing your self-worth and having social courage. All of that tends to shift, and that's really hard for someone who has been playing so hard not to lose love from people their whole lives. Whereas the unwanteds, because they feel so unwanted, they put up these massive boundaries, these massive barriers. So they're excellent at boundaries. The unlovables can learn from them for sure. They're so good at boundaries that they actually really struggle with vulnerability. And so that is their superpower that they need to build up, is vulnerability for the right people to actually let people in so they start to feel wanted, and that cycle can begin. There's a doom loop and a success loop for both, but defectives really need to learn what their significance means to them and where they get it. Unwanteds really need to lean into vulnerability and have those walls come down for the right people. And unlovables really need to lean into social courage. Courage not only to increase their self-worth, but to stop appeasing to those around them and see what that looks like. And that's just a little snippet into that. But again, it's hard to go super micro because it's so individualistic. But again, when we can just talk these macro buckets, and maybe you listening can start to put yourself or see which bucket you may fall into and then how that shows up in your life, then that would be a good takeaway.
How would you define social pain?
Everyone experiences it differently. Some people experience it from feeling very less than, and so they get made fun of and they don't get included. And so this is where you can see maybe that unwanted core wound come in. Because typically unwanteds, they start out very vibrant, very, very different from the average person. And they're, instead of being celebrated for their differences or their too muchness, they get ostracized and they start to feel that really young. And so even there, that's a bucket as well. Do you feel like you're too much or not enough? That can say a lot. Typically unlovables and unwanteds and the people who fear success already feel like they're too much. And defectives and people who fall into the fear of failure, they don't feel like they're enough on average. And so if you feel like you're too much or you feel like you're not enough, that is also running cycles in your life that as soon as you can put yourself into one of those titles, can empower you to start making different choices.
Social pain, is it the perception someone has that other people have of them, or is it more of a present accumulation of experiences?
Both. Yeah, it can be both. Again, we all see the lens, or we see the world through our own lens constantly. It takes a lot of self-awareness, others' awareness, and the world, being aware of the world, to be able to let go of that self-bias. It takes a lot of work. So if you're not doing that kind of work, you see your truth as the truth. And so whether that social pain is true or not, it still exists. It's just what lens are you seeing it through? So of the three of us, Kevin, Alan, and myself, Alan and I are the same in this. So his social pain and my social pain have always come from excellence. So when we do well at certain things, we lose love from certain people. And we have had to learn through our journey to start seeing that the more love we are losing, the more relationships we are losing, it actually means that we are becoming more successful in the things that matter most to us. But that's a huge jump. That took us a long time to get there on this journey of building what we have built separately and now together. We have loved and lost a lot of people along the way. We have learned that there are 3 people who come into your life, especially if you're a growth-oriented person who's dedicated to growing and doing, expanding, understanding yourself, setting boundaries, building your self-belief, self-worth. There's 3 people that come along. There's one that comes in, and when they're ready to leave because they can't handle the amount of work it's going to take to stay at your level and your energy, they actually lash out. They lash out first and then they leave. And typically for excellence-driven people, they'll attack your character. So that's very much rooted in social pain. When you're, especially for an unlovable and unwanted, if they attack your character, it's very hard for us. Whereas Kevin, who falls in the defective bucket, when someone attacks his character, it doesn't bother him at all because he's very confident in that himself. He knows he's a good man, but he struggles with how he feels capable externally. So if people insult his work, that hits him harder. When people insult Kevin or Alan and myself as people, that hits us harder than our work that we put out into the world, let's say. So again, it depends on the lens. It's very, very different. But so there's the people who will attack first and then leave and maybe blame you for certain things, for how the relationship has changed, or however that attack looks. It's never fun. So they'll attack and leave. Or there's the quiet quitters, the people who just slowly fall away, who don't want to come along anymore, whether it be in your business or in your life or anything like that. And then there's a really small percentage of people that do choose to come. They choose to grow. They choose to do what it takes to not only grow themselves and do the things they need to do, but also do the work that they need to do to stay in your energy because you mean that much to them. The social pain, I feel like that's a really good lens for it, is those 3 buckets there.
There's, I don't know if I saw this on social media or just or just a thought that I had, that some people would say that they love you, and then like the day after they completely like disappear in a way. So kind of somewhat tied to this. I have another question I wanted to go to, but the people who leave after they show how much they support you, is that more of, obviously circumstantial, but is that more of because they said it, now they want to leave? Or is it because now that to you it seems more valuable, them being the same way that they were before seems unreasonable?
I'm going to need it again.
So,
hit me with it again.
There's 2 people. One says, well, like platonic, romantic, doesn't matter. It's more of just relationships. That when people say that they love them, is it more often the perception that because they said something that doesn't get said very often, therefore the perception that you have of their value to you has increased, but because they stayed the same, like let's say you talk to them like once or twice a day, or maybe once or twice a week, and now that they say that you love them or they love you, value goes up, but they haven't changed at all because it's like to them it was already the truth. So the perception that...
the perception is going to be different depending on who it's being said to. So for an unlovable, let's say, for my lens, the second someone gives me that kind of connection, I get so excited. I'm like, oh, sweet. I love you too, because I love love and I love being loved and I love to just grow together and have all this fun. So unlovables, it's really important that we learn to watch actions and not just words. Because we deeply fall in love with people's potential. And what's concerning about that is we're actually just projecting our potential onto others. And that's our fault.
Is projection a reflection of like internal insecurities? It's like, because this is what I want to be, I'm going to project this on you because I'm hoping that I'll see this internal thing that I have as an external validation.
I think for some it is, and for others, they just have really high standards and they don't know how to own that yet. They don't know how to own that they have high standards, but it's their responsibility to live in those standards. It's not anyone else's. That has to be their choice.
Okay, so high standards below expectations.
high standards but low expectations. So high standards of self, low expectations of others. And that's where that can get really messy because we're creating a bit of a doom loop there where we have high standards for self, but we will get into a relationship with somebody, like you said, whether it be platonic or not, and we will hold our high standards for ourselves, but not need that from others yet. Because we want to come down to their level. We don't want to be seen as more than, we don't want to make them uncomfortable. We also, like, deep down, there's a huge part of us that gets really upset knowing that our excellence actually hurts other people. It makes them sad, it makes them feel inferior, and of course, that's when the people who are going to lash out before they leave, that's what they're lashing out about, even though it's never verbalized that way on average. But we get, again, lost in these social dynamics. But if you can understand where you're coming from, what your core wound is, what your beliefs are about people's places, things, and ideas, the world, then you can start to see, okay, well, is this my projection or is this someone else truly not a person of value in my life? That's tough. Again, there's a lot of healing, self-awareness and self-respect and self-worth and boundaries and things that need to come in there. But if you can start to understand yourself on the deepest level, you're going to be able to not only understand others, but start to watch for the actions that really matter to you versus their words. And that can tell you a lot. But if you're someone who has high standards for self and you're unconsciously projecting those standards onto other people, it gets a little rocky and you have to take some ownership for that. It's okay to have standards for the people who are in your life. You expect them to give as much as you give, to communicate as much as you communicate and things, and that's okay. But you can't put that onto the person who hasn't given you that or said that that's what they're signing up for. Maybe they don't have the same capacity as you do for friendship and relationships. Maybe they're not there and they can't meet you there, and you have to make a decision there. Okay, is this someone I'm going to keep pouring into, knowing that they can't pour as much back? Or am I ready to just let this friendship, let's say, go to a different shelf, a different layer of influence? Maybe they go a little further out than rather in my core people, let's say. Falling in love with the projection. I actually have something written right here to remind myself of that because I fall in love with potential so deeply, and so do a lot of the people I work with. But it's the potential that you see in others is not real. It's a projection of what you would do if you were them. And when you understand that kind of lens, I was looking over there because I literally have it written down right there. I have to be careful of that filter because I have very high standards for myself. And am I falling in love with the potential of someone else to be able to do that based on what I would do if I were them? Or am I allowing them to have their own version of that while still allowing them to add the value that they naturally bring, not what I project onto them? So there's that one. And then there's the other awareness and just really important lesson that some people are not rejecting you. They are rejecting the work it would take to stay in your energy. And that's okay too. That's where the quiet quitters come in. Maybe they're going to lash out first because they felt insignificant or however that looks. But to be able to see where you had a role to play in that, and if you would change anything, and if not, then they can fall away, and we have to learn to be okay with that. But again, that's tough. Takes a lot of work.
The projections, is that also partially a desire to not feel alone when you're growing, to feel like you're the only one who's going through it? Because it takes a long time because you can't rewire the brain. You could just set up new pathways. So it's just, it feel like the projections is just like, hey, I don't want to feel like I'm the only one in the world like this.
Yeah, I think especially for unwanteds, they go through what we call lonely land pretty hard in their own way. Unlovables go through lonely land in their own way. There's not a growth-oriented person who has not gone through lonely land in some way, shape, or form. Even if you're surrounded by people, but you're the only one doing this kind of work, it can feel very lonely. Or maybe the relationships in your life have shifted and you are going through a season of being physically alone because you have set boundaries, you've created higher standards, you have higher awareness of self. So maybe you're waiting now for a more aligned partner to come in for an intimate relationship, or however that's going to look. I think it would be setting someone up for failure on this journey to not tell you that there are those low and lonely moments. And typically that means you're doing something right. That means you're actually doing the work. You're actually doing the deep dive into the things that make you uncomfortable. You're actually willing to be lonely rather than give your time, attention, effort to people who are not aligned anymore. There's a lot that goes into that, but it is a season that every growth-oriented person I find goes through. And so it is normal. And so if you are in lonely land right now, one, you're not alone. It's so valuable to find a community of people who are doing similar work, but that it is a part of the journey. So I would actually say that you are doing something right and to keep going.
Does that have to do with that most people, when viewing someone else's when viewing from an external perspective, someone else's growth, that it's just desirable to have the instant gratification of success? That's like, you should already be where you wanted to be.
And that can be projected on us from others or on ourselves, from ourselves. So again, what's your relationship with that? Where are you being influenced? I think is one of the key components to that. Where are you allowing yourselves to be influenced? If you're looking at someone who is ahead on a journey, let's use podcasting. We're on a podcast right now. Let's say you went to Kevin and Alan's podcast right now, Next Level University, and they have a daily podcast and they're well over 2,000 episodes in. And you listen to their podcast and you're like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't even start. These guys are so good. I could never do that. What a mistake. You should go to their first episode and see how crappy they were. So where are you allowing influence to skew that you don't need to maybe put in as much work as you think you need to? That's a reality check. Oh, I should be more successful by now based on the, 20% effort that I've put in. Who is your influence? Who are you paying attention to? Especially on social media, we see constant instant gratification or instant overnight success, when in reality, if you look a decade back into that person's life, you'll see where it actually started. We're not being shown real journeys. We're being shown highlights of journeys, or we're being shown success. And even nowadays, people can rent cars, like do AI backgrounds that make them look like they're like, we got to stop with what we are paying attention to, especially if it is detrimental to ourselves. And we are causing a lot of detrimental beliefs to build up in us, where we either think, okay, we haven't done enough to be successful yet, or I can't be successful because I'm not this person. Humans constantly underestimate what they can do with time. We always overestimate what we can do in a day, but underestimate what we can do in 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, a decade. If you are consistent at something for a decade, there is no way you cannot be successful at that thing if you are dedicated to doing it. So I think we just get so taken away from the unsexy fundamentals that need to be in place for any kind of success journey, whether it be fitness and relationship or monetary and business, anything like that. We're too distracted with all the flashy things that we see online that might not even be real, that take us away from what are foundational things when it comes to success. Alan, he says this thing lately that's my favorite. It's success doesn't care about your feelings. You have to care about your feelings as the human. That's very, very important that you are taking care of you, your mental, physical, and emotional health along the way. But success itself doesn't care. The fundamentals of success, the important steps that need to happen to be successful in any journey, don't care how you're feeling that day, whether you do it or not.
All right, I'm going to go off.
And I think that that's a...
Yeah. No, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to go off the consistency tangent. What's your difference between consistency and sustainability?
They need each other. You can't be consistent without sustainability. And again, that's where people are setting themselves up for failure. They set themselves up in something that's unsustainable and then unfortunately convince themselves that it's not for them. Oh, I'm not capable of doing this thing. I'm unworthy of creating this thing. I'm not good enough. Whatever story you're telling yourself, when in reality, you just didn't have enough humility to start small.
Yeah. What's the difference between the two?
So consistency, I love the compound effect. I love seeing consistency as something we can do every day. Right? If you can leverage something every day, you can leverage the compound effect. If you can be consistent at it, then that's a huge win. But you cannot be consistent if it is not sustainable. So sustainable meaning, can you even do this thing every day? If you can't, I would argue that it's not sustainable yet. Keyword being yet there. How do you build up into what you deem worthy of this daily habit but have the humility to start small and sustainable. So fitness, let's use fitness as a great example because people really struggle in consistency with fitness, when in reality, it's just because, again, they're not setting themselves up for success. And so sustainability in fitness looks like, okay, I've never been able to work out for 60 minutes a day consistently, ever. But yet I'm dedicating myself tomorrow to wake up at 5 a.m. instead of 6:30 in the morning, and I'm going to work out for an hour. Well, if you've never done that, you're going to go for 3 days and hate your life. You're going to convince yourself that you can't get up early, that working out isn't for you, when in reality, if you just were able to set yourself up with some fundamental skills and beliefs first, and again, the humility to be sustainable, you would say, okay, I've never been able to do it, so I'm going to start at 15 minutes. And when 15 minutes gets easy, I'm going to bump it up to 20, and then 25, and then 30. And then eventually you will be able to do those 60 minutes, and you'll be able to do them with the capacity to do so and be able to fit it into your day because you've built that skill and the identity along the way.
That's also kind of...
But we always want to go from 0 to 10.
Yeah. And that would be instant gratification. It's like, I want to get it now, and not like, oh, this is going to be 1 year and then I'll be really good at whatever it is. I mean, I've started jujitsu back last June, and I'm still doing it, and I still have no idea what I'm doing. But I've done it long enough where it's like someone else new comes in, and I'm like, I'm better than that person. But then again, I was like that when I first started, which is really sad to see. What is the 5? So sustainability is long-term and consistency is short-term, or is it the other way around?
Other way around. Consistency is the ability to do something long-term, and you need to be sustainable to be able to do it.
Okay.
I mean, I feel like it's a feedback loop, genuinely. I don't know if it's a start and finish, black and white. It's just, I feel like in a lot of scenarios, it could be like chicken and the egg almost. But to be consistent to start, I do believe you need to be sustainable first to be able to remain consistent. And then as you go, those two start to feed each other in a different way. But to begin successfully, you do need to start sustainably.
Yeah. What are the other 4 parts of consistency that you had?
Yeah, so we have a 5-pointed star. We call it the consistency star. And the first step is actually belief, self-belief especially. So what do you believe about yourself and this thing that you are trying to do, this daily habit that you are trying to do? Do you believe it's possible? Do you believe it's possible for you? And do you believe it's going to be worth it? Those 3 layers really help to know those answers when you are starting a new habit. Because you see it online all the time. You see that it's possible, so you believe it's possible. But what is your level of belief for yourself that it's possible? And so then we take people through, let's keep using fitness as an example. Okay, what is your level of belief from 0 to 10 that you can work out for 60 minutes a day? We're going to use my fitness journey as an example. So when someone said to me, okay, what is your belief that you can build a fitness practice for an hour a day at the gym, lifting weights? 0 to 10, what's your belief in that? I said 0. Absolutely 0%. I live in a teeny tiny town on a dirt road that doesn't even have a gym. I would have to drive 40 minutes, I think, to the closest gym. So right there, I would be setting myself up for a lot of failure, pain, and just all sorts of things I don't want to do to meet that goal. So 0%, is that an aligned goal for me? It would not be worth it for me, in my opinion. And I do not believe I could do it every day. Awesome, let's drop it down. Okay, do you believe you could work out from home every day? Yeah, I do. Do you believe you could work out from home every day for an hour? Nope, not yet. Okay, and just keep playing with that belief. Okay, where do you believe it's possible? Do you believe you could do something? Okay, even we took it to weights. Alan coached me through this initially, our CEO, and someone I am so privileged and grateful to have exposure to this man's brain. And he was taking me through this. Okay, well, what about weights? Weights every day for 30 minutes. I said, like a 3, not very high belief. He's like, okay, you are a very busy person, Amy. You have children, you have chickens, you have so many variables. Okay, so what is your belief? What statement can we use to build belief in you? And I'm going to give you the statement now, and I'm going to show you how it touches on all 5 points as we go through. So my fitness statement is I am going to move my body in an aligned way every day for 30 minutes. And I believe I can do that at a level 10 because it's not too like this. So we'll move on to the next one. Number 2 is humility, self-awareness. accurate sense of self. So I needed to know that I have never been able to work out consistently for an hour every day, let alone drive 40 minutes to the gym, do it for an hour, and then come home. That would have been it would have been actually kind of arrogant of me to assume that I could do that without any evidence. So where can you have humility to be honest with yourself of where you are starting from? Where are you starting this habit from? Is it from 0? Then you need to move to 1. Are you starting from a level 3 in your mind? Then awesome. Start there. But humility plays into number 3, which is sustainability that we talked about. So you have to have humility to be able to build something sustainably. You have to have humility to be able to say, okay, I've never actually done that for an hour, so I need to drop my standards and my vision of this to 30 minutes for now. And so that's what I did. So sustainability to me, it was really important to have that 30 minutes, but it was also, I couldn't say 30 minutes first thing in the morning, or I'm not doing it. That wouldn't be sustainable. I have a lot of variables in my life, children being one of them. Sometimes we wake up in the morning and it is instantly not my morning anymore. I have littles that need me maybe earlier than I expect sometimes. And so I need to be able to have this thing be very sustainable in my day, or I'm not going to get it done. And so if I said weights first thing in the morning every day, or I'm not going to do it, I would have already set myself up for failure. So the next one is adaptability. Adaptability, it might as well be grace. Is your habit that you are trying to do adaptable? If I said I'm going to do a half-hour HIIT training every day, and all of a sudden I'm not feeling that well, or I had a crazy chaotic day, and now I'm at the end of my day and I'm expected to put that level of output out, it'd be very challenging for me. Especially, I come from a background of chronic illness. And so I'm very, very aware of my inflammation, of my hormonal health and things. So I am very dedicated to working out within my cyclical nature. That means a lot to me, to be able to stay healthy from this thing that kept me so sick. And so if I weren't able to adapt and just committed to doing, weights for an hour every day, first thing in the morning, there's no room for pivot there. Whereas if I'm at the end of my day and it has been a low energy day, even just for me cyclically, and I still am committed to doing this thing for myself, maybe that looks like some gentle stretching and some yoga instead of me hitting the weights. And maybe we're going to do it later than expected, so I'm only going to be able to give it 30%, but I'm going to give it 100% of that 30%. Adaptability is understanding that you don't actually have the same amount of 100% to give every day. And your day is only as reactive or only as proactive as it can be, and then there's a lot of reactivity in a day. So does your habit reflect that? Is there a version of your habit that is just a check the box version because your day went off the rails, but you're committed to doing this thing anyways? So how adaptable are you, and how adaptable is your habit to be able to pivot into a check the box moment? This is a struggle for people who deal with perfectionism. If you can't give it 100%, then I'm not going to do it at all. But if you allow this practice to come in, it's actually going to help you heal that. It really is. If you can give yourself permission to do it half-ass, honestly, but still get it done, you're building more self-belief and self-worth than you could know, and it's actually going to help heal your perfectionism. The last one is grit. Sometimes, again, we talked about how success doesn't care about your feelings. Sometimes you just have to have an F my feelings moment and get it done. It does take grit some days to get something done that you said you were going to do, even though your day has gone off the rails. I mean, we've had illnesses fly through our household where I have crawled onto the floor and just done some deep mobility and stretching so that I can still honor my practice to myself. But was it good? No, absolutely not. Did I get any kind of workout in? Absolutely not. Whatsoever. It was non-existent. But did I keep the promise I made to myself and get the thing done? Absolutely. And do I now have this different identity about myself, my physical body, my ability to be consistent? Because I've done this now for over 1,000 days, I've been able to do that because of how adaptable, how sustainable, and how I've been able to work it into my life because I didn't pigeonhole into it's either all or nothing. It's either this way or not. And then grit has to come in. Like I said, the day's been reactive. You had so much going on. You don't have the energy to do it, but you said you were going to do it. And especially if you don't want to do this thing, but you get it done anyways, then the cycle doubles down and you start from self-belief again. You get so much extra self-belief points from doing the thing that you didn't want to do. And if you had to pull in some grit to get it done, your brain gives you these like extra belief points. It's wonderful. And so you're able to keep that cycle going and building the identity of belief and consistency and things along the way.
I have one question, but I have a question before that one question. The first question is, how would you define, to you, what's the difference between feelings and emotions?
Feelings and emotions. I really feel like they're very blurred
Okay,
together.
synonyms. Okay. So with that,
I don't know if there's synonyms, but you can go off of like labeling an emotion and then feeling the emotion are very different.
okay, what's the difference?
And being in the emotion, I think in your feelings get messy, especially if you're not used to labeling them. And if you're not used to understanding what the feelings mean inside of you and be able to label it as an emotion, then that is a skill worth building for
so
sure.
it's the interpretation of your emotional awareness.
I think it can be, and it's an you're able to label what you're feeling mentally, emotionally, physically. Emotions can, like the labels of emotions can help give you that roadmap of what you feel you're experiencing.
So tying that,
But again, there's so many
I know.
nuances.
I'm trying to keep it as simplified as possible. Going off of that, what's the difference between grit, discipline, and motivation?
Again, I think they can be all put under a huge subheading or a massive title there. But grit, I think, is in a moment. Motivation is fleeting. Sometimes we're motivated, sometimes we're not. Grit is what you pull in when you're not motivated but want to do it anyways.
And then discipline?
Discipline is, again, your ability to do it regardless of your motivation. Discipline is consistency. Discipline is you against you and how well that's going. Discipline and grit, I feel like, would be
interchangeable. Okay.
But motivation is fleeting. Motivation is different to everybody. People are motivated by their mission. People are motivated by their children. People are motivated by themselves. I always encourage people to learn how to be self-motivated, but it's, valuable to pull in those other things that they find motivate them. Accountability to others motivates people. Like finding out what actually motivates you and how you can tap into it more is going to be a really powerful thing, but also just learning to be a motivator of self, you against you. And then again, when that motivation just isn't there, grit and discipline.
When we were doing the brainstorming and what came out of it was discipline and motivation are feelings. Grit is tolerance and discipline is identity, or part of like interchangeable.
People identify as a disciplined person or not, whether it's true or not. But I find that people, when they talk about discipline, they talk about it as an identity. They either are or they are not.
Going back a little bit, self-belief, is it possible that the convenience of you having to drive 40 minutes can also be a good motivator to get you into the gym? Because once you get there, it's like, I've dedicated all this time for it. But also if it's in your house, then like the convenience of it being so close by, it's like, I could do this anytime, so I'm not going to do it right now.
So then you get to decide what kind of person you are and which one is going to motivate you more. I would be absolutely, to a detriment, unmotivated to not take that drive to go. I know that would work against me. Now, I could trick myself into leveraging, well, you get that drive to yourself. That's 40 minutes by yourself where you could listen to an audiobook, grow, do the things that you want to do. But I still see it as a massive waste of my time out of my space where I could be doing bigger, better things. So again, it depends on what motivates you. We can use the word motivation. Is that a detriment or is that something that's going to actually get you there and get you committed? And what you can do along that drive, like some mothers, they desperately need that time. They need that time away from their household. And that's going to be a motivator for them to be able to have that drive, have the gym experience, and then have a nice drive home as well. Like that's something that they might desperately need and be able to leverage for themselves as moments to themselves, self-care. They get to listen to the music they want. Maybe they make themselves a lovely coffee on the way. However that looks, it might be really different than how I would experience it. And so that's where the self-assessment comes in. That's where, okay, do I believe it's possible? Do I believe it's possible for me? But do I believe it's going to be worth it? For me, I don't believe currently it's going to be worth it for me to drive those 40 minutes, do the hour at the gym, and drive 40 minutes home. But to someone else, it might be.
Does it also stem from emotional association? By being able to go somewhere else, you associate this thing with this place, and therefore you can get kind of into the mindset faster? Whereas if you're, and then like if, I guess it kind of goes with like grit and discipline, that you can have, like if you have to do it at home, that you have to get the associate, you have to emotionally disconnect, emotionally disassociate, that this is that and this is this, and then you can still get it done?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you able to put the blinders on from everything else that needs done in your home and everyone in your home who needs your attention to take the 20 to 30 minutes for yourself to do this thing? And if that is a struggle for you, then maybe the opposite is the best answer for you. But if it's not, and you're like me, and I can use all of that extra time to be pouring into stuff like this, my family, my household, and all of the things that I value doing, and then I can quickly say, okay, I'm going for my walk, my hike, or my weights, or whatever it is that I'm doing. And my family, what's exciting is they love nature as well. So if it's a walk or a hike day, they come with me. It's amazing. Love that. So now I'm doubling down on things that matter the most to me, which is quality family time, deep conversations, and my fitness and getting outside into nature. Like, it just checks all my boxes. Love that one. And then when I get to do my weights and things, it's a moment for me, but still in my own space. Lots of people need to leave their home to feel relaxed, to feel the ability to step away into something for themselves. I have chosen to create an environment in my own home that I don't need to escape from. I value being here so deeply and putting into my home the things that matter most to me, like a little mini gym here. So very, very dependent on the person, for sure.
This is going to be a weird tangent. If you value excellence so much, how are you able to balance both the excellence, the desire to pursue excellence, with a woman's hormonal cycle, with all the different stuff that goes on with that?
Yes. Because I understand it, I leverage it. Again, it's something that isn't unconsciously running against me. It's not me going against a physical cycle that I don't understand. It's me really understanding that cycle and working with it. And then giving myself the grace when I'm not exactly set up for success, but need to do the thing anyways. And give myself acceptance that it's not going to look the way it did a couple weeks ago, or I'm not going to feel the same about it as I did a couple weeks ago. But I'm going to show up and do this thing. And again, like I said, your 100% looks different every day. Maybe energetically, I only have 30% to give to something, but I'm going to show up knowing that I'm going to give 100% of that 30%, and it looks very different than it was a couple weeks ago. So podcasting is a really good example. When women are in certain seasons of their cycle, they're more outgoing, they're more articulate, we're more socially just excited and things. And then you go into this internal phase where you feel like a potato and you don't want to talk to anybody, and you're actually not as articulate and things. Well, I go on podcasts, I go on a few a week on average, and there are some weeks where I absolutely crush those podcasts. I am way more articulate. My brain is set up for just more cognitive function and things, and to be able to translate that and put it externally. Like, again, as a woman, you are different every day, and especially week to week. And not just emotionally, physically and mentally. Your brain, your gut, everything like physically changes. And so you don't know that about yourself. And you are crushing something one week, and then like, why the next week? Why can't I be consistent like I was last week? Why can't I put the energy out? Why did I make such exciting plans last week to go out Friday night this week with the girls, and I don't want to go now? But last week me really wanted to. And then you feel like crap. You're like, why do I suck so bad this week? There's so much shame and guilt that comes along with that for women, that when they can understand how they're cyclically set up, you can just have so much more self-compassion, self-awareness, self-love, and self-respect in those moments, and actually learn to guide your calendar that way. Now, there's things we can't get out of every day. Not all of us have the I don't know what I'm trying to say there, to create our own schedules. But if we just know that you're going to show up differently for that thing than you did a couple weeks ago, it just makes it so much more peaceful internally. So it'd be very challenging for me, again, going on podcasts, for me to always say, well, I know I'm going to do really well in these couple of weeks, and then crap on myself for being so terrible the next couple weeks where I'm just not set up for success whatsoever. But I don't, because I have the awareness to say, okay, I'm not going to be able to show up like I did a couple weeks ago, but I'm going to give my best, and it's going to be funny, and we're going to roll with it, and my memory might not be as good today, but we're just going to talk about that. It's going to be fine. And I want to just own that for women so deeply, that you are just different. You're like the moon. You're slightly different every day and very different week to week. And if you can learn to roll with that, with compassion and grace and understanding, and then schedule in your busier times if you can into where you're set up for success for that, even better. But men are like the sun. You guys cycle on a 24-hour cycle. So it's just an entirely different game.
I really like the moon analogy, because that's also kind of like consistency, that not every day is going to be a full moon. But even when there's a new moon, it's still, you can see the moon. It still exists. It's not like it's completely out. It's not 0%. So I don't know, weird tangent. Is that why a lot of people prefer, or not a lot of people, why some people prefer affirmations? Because it kind of gives them the opposite of what they should be doing, or of like, hey, this is what I want to be, and this is what I think I am, but not actually like, but that's not really solving the problem. That's just creating a illusion of a solution.
Yes. And affirmations are great for some people. They're detrimental for others. Also, affirmations can sometimes make it feel like you're doing something towards a goal, but it's not the whole piece. And I think people get confused that if they just say this thing every day, that it's going to happen because they said the thing. The action still has to match the thing. And I think that's where people get a little upset, is they're saying this thing, they're doing this thing, but the results aren't there. And they just weren't given the rest of the pieces of the puzzle. Say these affirmations so your identity starts to believe something about yourself, but you also have to have the actions to prove it. Your brain is constantly looking for proof. So if affirmations help you, that's great, but you still have to have the action to match it up.
It's kind of like reading a book about swimming, but not actually learning how to swim.
Yeah, you understand the concept now. It's stirring things inside of you, maybe a little bit of an understanding, but are you an expert swimmer because you read all the books? Absolutely not. You got to get in the freaking pool, right? So, but then there's affirmations where people are thrown into, okay, speak like this to yourself every day without any previous assessment of, well, what is your current level of self-talk? What is your current level of self-belief and self-worth? Because if you are really low in those two things, but you're talking to yourself like you're up here, your brain knows the gap. It's going to loudly shout that gap to you. If you say, I am successful and am making $1 million a month, that part of your brain's going to be like, no, you're not. No, you're not. And you're going to be like, no, you're right, I'm not. And then you're actually building this detrimental cycle of inaction, words that don't match your identity. There's so many nuances when it goes into affirmations. And so I get like a little fired up about it because I've seen people crumble and feel like they are broken and they are the problem because they're saying these affirmations. And if anything, their self-worth, their self-belief, their vision of self is actually getting less instead of more. And it's getting less because they're not told that they also need to be doing action along with it, or it's just going to be, I don't know, detrimental. And so if you are saying affirmations and your self-talk is coming back as, no, you're not. No, we don't. We are not capable of doing that. Then you need to switch the verbiage a little bit. We need to come in with, I am becoming. That's a really powerful shift for someone who is struggling with that talk. You say, I am becoming X, Y, and Z. And then you need to know what those actions are that you can take every day to double down on that new identity, that new belief.
It's kind of just weird tangent. It's kind of tied to how you can't expect everything out of other people. Like you can't expect that the friend that you have that you need to have good talks with to like clear up your mind is going to be the same person who wants to go to like bowling with you, or same person who wants to work out with you or take to like a restaurant and be like, hey, this is really good food. So kind of same thing. It's like, don't expect every part of your personality to be ready for the change that it needs to grow.
Right? To be super on board with this latest obsession of yours or this latest venture or this latest goal or whatever it is. Yeah, you can't expect all of your parts to be on board with that yet. But can you get them on board? Absolutely.
To you, what's the difference between personality and character?
I feel like they're both rooted in identity. Personality can be, I think personality can be more fleeting than character. But again, you could take that both ways. Character, I think, is an identity of who you want to be. I think character is rooted in integrity. I mean, you hear people say, "Oh, that guy's such a character," but I think they're just talking about like, these superficial things that this person portrays about their personality. So there's character traits, there's personality traits. I feel like they in a lot of literature get interchangeable. But to me, when I think of my character, I think, well, what does that mean about me and how others see me and how I want to show up in the world?
Character is like the external perception, whereas personality is like the internal perspective, or is it more of a this is who I want to be and this is who I am now? Okay.
Yeah, you can still have an external personality versus an internal personality. You can have a personality that you feel safe enough to show others, but not all of it.
So which one is tied more closely to someone's potential?
If you can learn to embody the character traits of the version of you that needs to be, like the version of who you need to be to gain that success, I feel like that's something you can look at externally. Well, here's this person who has the thing that I desire. What character traits do they possess that I can start to embody? I feel like the character traits, the things that you portray externally, can begin to build into that personality internally. And personality is just built up of so many nuances. It depends who you're with. It depends how safe you feel emotionally, physically. It depends on even your core wound and where all that deep stuff comes in. Your personality is built up of all of these things. Whereas character is maybe a little more under your control as far as portraying or building.
Which part do people usually criticize internally themselves? More of who they want to be or who they are now?
Depends. Are you fear of success or fear of failure? Right? So Alan and I are very hard on ourselves because we see the future potential and we know every time we're not doing something towards that, we're not living up to that. But if you fear failure, I feel it's a lot of negative self-talk towards the now.
What's the difference between positive self-talk and affirmations? Like where's the line drawn between you like helping yourself and you deceiving yourself?
Yeah, positive though is still subjective. So positive self-talk for me depends what I'm motivated by. It depends what so like Alan's self-talk is very positive for him, but would be very detrimental for other people. Completely detrimental. So his self-talk is very much like, Alan, get your shit together. We can do better. I know we can do better. Like he gets motivated by telling himself he can do better. Whereas someone with low self-belief, especially, that would be detrimental. You would not be able to pick yourself up off the couch if you talk to yourself like that regularly. So it's very subjective of what positive self-talk means.
So positive self-talk is more actionable. It's more of something that's like, this is something I can do rather than something that I want to do.
It depends on what's more positive for you or detrimental, right? So we can still stick with women. A lot of women's negative self-talk is about their physical appearance, about how a lot of women feel like they're too much emotionally or not enough physically. And so if that is the case, then we definitely need to work on some positive self-talk and start focusing on the things that you do love versus the things that you hate. We need to start bringing in some gratitude. We need to start bringing in I feel like gratitude's a better practice than affirmations. I will take and give gratitude to grateful over affirmations all day. I think it builds something deeper within us. It builds abundance, whereas affirmations can fuel scarcity.
Does the perception of scarcity cause insecurity?
Yes, it can. Scarcity, when people are in scarcity, it drives them to do different things. It's like shame. Everyone's shame response is really different, but it's deep rooted in them. I think scarcity is the same thing. Again, very subjective. What makes one person feel scarce versus another is very different. Same with shame. What makes one person feel shame over another is very different. But the responses that come from people in scarcity and shame are very typically, they can become unintegrous. They can become misaligned with who they are personally. It triggers so much of just, again, core wounds and things that run us unconsciously. That's when you see them show up, is when you're in scarcity and when you're in shame or guilt. Then those parts come up and take over because they think that they're keeping you safe. In reality, it's probably causing a lot of havoc in your external life when you're trying to hide from shame, hide from scarcity, or are in shame and scarcity. Maybe you're not hiding, but you know it. And so these protectors come out and it can cause a lot of chaos in your life. People can get caught in the crossfire of that really easily if you don't have awareness and a certain amount of control over that.
There's one saying that was something along the lines of that some people will feel guilty. Like if someone gets caught doing something that they shouldn't, sometimes they don't feel guilty about getting caught. They're not guilty about what they did, but guilty about them getting caught. So is that kind of like insecurity that people will be insecure about things only because it's almost like a illusion of safety. Whereas if they have to show that to other people, be like emotionally vulnerable, then it's almost like that vulnerability is worse. It's a bigger insecurity.
Mm-hmm. If you have guilt or shame around the getting caught versus the action, I think that gives you a huge window into your personality. Do you have guilt about the character trait that is a person who would do such a thing? Or are you just ticked you got caught? You would still do the thing again, but you're disappointed in yourself on how you executed that thing because you got caught. Guilt and shame are two different things, though.
What's the difference?
Guilt is, I did something bad. I did this bad thing. Shame is, I am bad. Shame is deeper and rooted in identity.
Okay. Action, identity. Okay.
Guilt, I can have guilt over making a poor decision, but it doesn't mean I'm berating myself for being a poor or bad person. Shame, when people have an override, like an over stimulated or just an overachiever shame response, they see everything they do or choose to do as deep-rooted, like, I am bad. I didn't just do this bad thing. I did this thing because I myself am bad. It's a deeper underlying wound. And it causes people to do crazy things when they're caught in shame because they're not in this part of their brain. They're back here now because it's so rooted in identity and trauma and triggers and all sorts of things. Brene Brown has really good. It's an audio that she turned into an audiobook. I don't think it's a physical copy book that you can get, but it's called The Power of Vulnerability. And it talks a lot about guilt and shame, and it is excellent.
It's interesting. You went from this side to where your vision is back here. And I was like, I don't know. That doesn't seem right.
No, it's like deep. If you were to go like in the deep brain, it's like a cross section.
Yeah, in the center.
All your logic and what you like, it's all logic and things
cortex. But then
in that deep.
Yeah, I saw you go to the back. I was like, that's where your sight is. That's where you see stuff. It's like, that might seem connected.
Isn't that wild? Which is so far from your eyeballs. It's like the furthest spot from your eyeballs. There's this whole like thing. So cool.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, your body doesn't know your immune system doesn't know your eyeballs exist, and so if it ever found out, then it'll start eating it up or something like that. I could be wrong about that. It could have been something I just saw on Instagram.
Still would not surprise me at all. Our bodies are wild. The amount you can know about just the physical being that you are and still not know enough and not know. Like, I have a background in anatomy and physiology and I still feel like I know nothing.
Yeah, there's something I saw on Instagram. I haven't looked into it yet. Something along the lines of that Your heart sends 80% of information to your brain, whereas your brain sends about 20% information to the heart, which is kind of strange. And it, like, also kind of tying to like why people get like they say things from the heart and not from like the brain, which that would make a lot of sense, but I haven't looked into it enough. It's just a weird tangent. What during your early teenage years, what was the thing that you got, and how did it help you in your story?
I had a condition called endometriosis. So very female, hormonally driven condition, very inflammatory. And initially, it just presents as really problematic periods and problematic, I don't know, women's struggles, is all the doctors told me initially. Oh, welcome to becoming a woman. This is just your life now. It actually took me years to get a diagnosis. Years of pushing of, hey, mine is different than the average other teenage girl I'm hanging around with. It's detrimental. I'm in pain all the time, not just on certain seasons. I am struggling so much to function. The inflammation is spreading throughout my body. Like, it was wild to just be kept being met with, oh, welcome to womanhood. This is so normal. It's like, okay, well, here's the concern. Just because it's common, does that mean it's normal and okay? And I went on a very deep journey to find out that, yeah, it's common, but it is not normal for our bodies to be functioning that way as women. It's all hormonally driven, and we're not set up for success environmentally, internally, anything like that, to have a healthy hormonal cycle anymore. And so that's why I just advocate so much for women to understand that part of themselves. But it took me years and years of just going through initially just the generic medical system because I didn't know any better. And they just gave me a lot of Band-Aids, a lot of hormonal therapies, a lot of pain medication, oh my gosh, and just surgeries to go in, take the cells out that were not supposed to be there. So endometriosis is a proliferation of cells where they're not supposed to be. So it's not cancerous, but it spreads where it's not supposed to. And it causes all sorts of different effects on women's guts, on obviously their uterus and their ovaries and things, but also their guts, their nerves. Like, mine affected the nerves into my legs, which was really terrible. Sometimes I would just like collapse and be like, oh no. And so I had this moment in my early 20s where I had done everything I was supposed to be doing. I'm on all the hormonal therapies, birth control. I'm taking all of these pain medications, and yet I'm still sick all the time. And now I'm having side effects from all the different drugs. And so it's like, okay, I had this moment of clarity in my early 20s where it was like, okay, I need to stop everything and just get to know my body again and get to know what is working and what isn't. And maybe I can get off of some of this stuff and keep others if it's working. I wasn't opposed to it. But as I started safely coming off of all of these things and just dabbling in other modalities of health, I started to feel better. And I started to get to know my body again in just a different way of what it actually needs and what its actual cues were. And I was able to not only begin to manage my symptoms, or at least not need all the drugs to manage my symptoms, because I was used to functioning in pain anyways. So at least I was getting off of the things that were causing me side effects that I didn't need to be experiencing, and found a little bit of relief. And we were able to get pregnant with our first son. And that was really special because I was told I would be never able to have children because of how bad my condition was. And so we went through that journey, really beautiful. And then after that, I dove deep again into my healing journey because the pain came back. You don't experience endometriosis when you're pregnant. So that cycle has to go through, and then it can come back because it's not something you can get rid of. And I say that in quotes if you're just listening, and there was little air quotes there. And so then I got to go deeper dive. Okay, well, I've already found success in what I had done. What can I do to go further? What else can I explore? And I got in touch with this really incredible naturopath who started just looking at me as a whole being. Okay, like, let's not just talk about your uterus. Let's look at your liver, your gut, your stress, your sleep, your diet, like how all of that comes together in this community that your body is. All these pieces work together. They are not separate. And I was just so excited to have someone talk to me about me as a whole and not just as these separate parts. And so that was another layer of healing in my journey. And then I had some complications again. I was able to, after those complications, get pregnant with my second son. and then did the deeper layer that is external environment for my healing. So I know, again, we love instant gratification. We love it. I know I tell this story to people all the time, and they're like, okay, but what was like the one thing? Mm-mm. Okay, and what, like, did it take like a month? No, it took a decade. It did. But I had moments of success along the way throughout that decade that kept me going. And then I became pain-free and have two beautiful children from a condition that I was told I could never, not only not be in pain, but have children. And so that's where we think a lot of my self-belief came from. And again, hindsight's always 2020, but it also takes self-belief to keep going in those moments. Because a healing journey is not all, start to finish uphill trend line. There's highs and lows, there's plateaus, there's all sorts of different things that happen, and self-belief is what takes you through those. And so I love being able to look back on my journey with the lens that I have now and the awarenesses I have now and be able to pinpoint, oh, I was able to do that because I had a certain level of self-belief. And I also never tied my worth to my sickness. A lot of people in the chronic illness space, it becomes a part of their identity to the point where their brain actually doesn't feel worthy of being healthy. So it will sabotage the actions it takes to get there. And I can look back at all the women I tried to help. And all my public speaking actually started in women's health, in holistic healing for your hormones, natural wellness for your hormones, plants, essential oils, different things that you can do, and detoxing your body. I got to do all of these incredible talks all over Western Canada. And I could see just that excitement build in women, and they felt so seen, and they all of a sudden had this layer of belief that it was possible. But I don't think I did a good enough job in the beginning to make them believe it was possible for them and to make them believe that the journey was going to be worth it. And again, that hindsight being 2020, I can look back and see where I wasn't setting them up for success. I was giving them all the tools that they needed. Here's everything I did. Exactly. Here's all the little things you can do every day. Talk about consistent habits. I have things I do every day that I don't even notice that I do anymore, that have become habits over this decade or two now of healing, that honor my hormones every day that I don't even think about, but they're just practices that have built into my identity. And I was giving the women the tools that they needed. I was giving them my belief and my support, but I was not skilled enough yet to recognize where their level of self-belief was, where their level of self-worth was, and how that was going to trip them up along the way. In any journey of success, I deeply believe you will meet the level of those two things within yourself. Your level of self-belief, your level of self-worth, and your ability to be consistent, but that it requires those other two. And again, hindsight's always 2020, so I can look back on it now and see. And so I'm so grateful for the work that I get to do now and everything that I've been able to accumulate up until now, because I still help women understand their cycles. I still help with all of the things that I, started with back when I started my professional career in anatomy and physiology and all of these other things. And now I have found a space where I can now tie it all together through what I have learned here, and I get to help with a more holistic lens. And that has just been incredible to do with people.
There's some saying that some people try to live life to understand it, whereas other people try to understand it so they can live it. That time when in your early 20s, when you kind of moved off, was that when you try to understand life so that you can live it?
Yeah, I think that's a really good perspective. I wanted to dive into deeper understanding so that I had more control over the life that I wanted to live. I think we put a lot of time, energy, and effort into things that we can't control, but we don't know that we can't control it. And we don't do enough to pour into the things that we can control, which is actually very small in the grand scheme of things. And so learning my circle of control, which is the same as everybody else's, it's just you. What you say, think, do, believe, all of those things, that's the only thing you really have control over. And yes, you have control over your thoughts and your beliefs and all those things. It can take time, though. You don't just get to be like, oh, no, right? Done. Some of us can do that, but it's okay if it takes time for you to learn to control those things about yourself. And then our circle of influence. Now, we can't control other people, but we can have a certain level of influence over people and scenarios and things, but not full control. And then there is so much in that external layer that we do not have control over that people are constantly fighting to have control over, and it is exhausting you. It is making your life miserable. It's making it not fulfilling. There's so much that can be of detriment if we are living in that circle where we actually can't control anything but are fighting to. And so I think that was another piece of it too. I just learned to take control of the things that I could and the things that mattered and influence the things that I could, and learning still, because that's a ever-going journey of learning to let go of things that you can't control. We talked earlier about projecting standards onto other people. That's absolutely within my control, but it's very challenging. So there's always layers. On a growth journey, you never actually arrive. There is always so much more you can dive into. So I think that's another piece of this puzzle too. If you are on any kind of journey, just trust that you will hit milestones that matter. But if you choose, you can always keep going. There is always something to strive for that is more. And I think that that's a pretty powerful place to be, because the more you learn about something, the more you realize you don't know. I said that about anatomy and physiology and the human body. The more I learn about it, the more I realize, oh my gosh, I know nothing. There's so much to know. And so if you can learn to be a striver instead of an arriver, then your expectations of this journey will, I think, be a lot more empowering than detrimental.
It's also interesting how usually looking forward, there's a lot of anxiety. It's like what could happen, what should happen, what I hope would happen. But then looking back, you're like, most of that didn't matter. I still got everything done. Was it as good as it should have been? No, but I don't regret doing anything I did because I got it done. I actually did it instead of just saying I would do it. Yeah. What would you say is the most beautiful part about motherhood?
Oh my goodness. I mean, it's literally your heart living outside of your body. It really is. They are an extension of my heart, and that is something that is so scary when you think about it, what that could mean, because you love something so much and now it is external from you. It is the most beautiful journey and the greatest gift that I have ever been given. And I know that I maybe have extra investment in that because I was told I couldn't have children and things. So I have this extra layer of lens. Oh, that's going to make me emotional. That I get to see my children through.
What do you mean by it's an extension of your heart?
Because they're these living, breathing pieces of you. They're part of you. And it's actually really cool talking about anatomy and neuroscience and things. They did this really cool study where you see that children's cells and mothers' cells still live within each other throughout your entire lives. So they don't actually get fully absorbed and all go fully away, which is, I think, really cool. That's why women have these different senses about their children and are tied to their children in a different way than anybody else. But it is the most humbling journey because they're your greatest joy, but they're also your greatest triggers because they're literal mirrors of you, which is really fascinating because I think as adults, we get entitled sometimes that we know more, that we know what is right, but if we can have a little humility, sometimes our children can teach us a lot, especially where we still need to do more healing because we will always project that onto them and they will trigger that in us. And so parenthood alone is a really hard but worthwhile and beautiful journey.
How do you sustain that humility as they grow up, as they start learning more about the world and start challenging the way that you live your life?
I think with this deep understanding that you are not entitled to your children. You do not own them. You are not entitled to them. You need to earn their love and respect just as much as you believe they need to earn yours. But I actually think that should be way less than what we feel we need to earn in them. And I mean, they humble me all the time. And I think we need to let them, instead of like when they get really curious, okay, well, mommy, like, why? Why are you like on our butts to get out the door right now? And I'm like, okay, we got to go. And then they'll say, well, why? Why is that important? And instead of being like, because I said so, it's important to be able to tell them, okay, here's the thing, here is why. And they get so curious and they get so it's just allowing their curiosity to run wild and allowing them to question you and being able to apologize to your children is something that I've learned to be such an important thing. I grew up thinking that adults knew that what they were doing all the time. They had it all figured out. Kids see adults so differently. You see it as, oh, like you're the adult. You know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. I'm the adult in this household. I don't know what the hell's going on. Half the time I have to figure it out. So I say to my children all the time, you know what? This is my first time as a 38-year-old with a 12-year-old son asking me this question. So let's figure it out together. Or I'm going to I don't want to act like I know everything because I don't want to raise kids who all of a sudden enter adulthood and feel like, well, what? My mom knew everything. Why don't I know everything right now? No, I don't. I know nothing. I know nothing in the grand scheme of things, but I've built enough belief in myself to figure it out. And that's my goal in my children, just to build enough belief in them that they can feel like they can, surpass any obstacle that comes their way, even if they don't know what the heck to do with it in the moment. And so I think the more we can let children in on those moments and apologize to them when we're wrong or we get triggered and let them in on mistakes that happen or things, they're going to be set up for success more as adults.
What kind of adults do you want your kids to be?
I want them to be the kind of adults that not only they want to be, I feel like I'm going to support anything they want to do, but I want them to be integrous. I teach them all the time about integrity and chivalry, and like we've been talking about women's cycles. Nothing like that is hidden from my boys in this household whatsoever. They know exactly what's going on and what that looks like. And, what women need, or not to touch mommy's special chocolate bar because it's for emergencies. Things like that, right? That's important. Oh, that's the emergency chocolate bar. Don't touch that, because if that's not in the house when mommy needs it, we're all going to suffer. Those little things, right? Those little messy moments in life. It's really important. No, I want them to be who they want to be, but my goal for them, just on everything that I have learned through my own history and through about people and things, is that it's more about what you can or who you can be in conflict. It's more than trying to avoid it. Don't want them to avoid conflict. I want to embrace it. I want them to embrace it, but believe in themselves to be able to do so. So my goal for them is integrity and high self-belief, and to just support them in whatever it is that they want to do and who they want to be.
Would you want them to learn how to manage their internal conflict first or their external conflict?
Internal.
Internal, okay.
Yeah, which we're always met with external examples, though. So they go together so deeply, right? The external is what triggers the internal, and sometimes you don't know what's going to come out if you haven't mastered that yet. So I would consider my boys emotionally intelligent for their age, for sure. And that now we're using external conflict examples to pull what they have learned already and to show that externally, whether they are in an altercation with a kid at the beach, like it happened the other day. I was watching, I was so close to intervening because this kid was just being not nice to my boys and their friends. And I was watching. You want to let them handle stuff, right? But obviously I'm going to step in because at the end of the day, I am their mother and we're not going to mess around with my kids. But I could just hear my eldest being like, you don't have to act this way. We would love to play with you if you stopped. He was pushing everyone off the dock. He's like, if you just stop pushing us, you could play with us. And the kid's like, well, when I come here, other kids push me off the dock, so that's what I'm doing. And so my oldest walked to him again and said, just because someone did it to you doesn't mean you need to do it to others. And the kid kind of thought about it. And then the kid just ended up leaving and walking away, which was also great. But again, just watching those little moments and you're like, yes.
Yeah. No, it's like, why deal with the problem when the problem can just walk away itself?
Yeah. Problem can walk away. Yeah. And then some of the kids in their friend group, you could tell, wanted to escalate the situation. Well, if he's pushing me, I'm going to push him back. And my eldest was like, don't, you're going to make it worse. Don't do that. Go stand over there if you can't handle it. Like, I will deal with this. It was really, really cool to witness because you always have concerns. My kids don't go to school. I homeschool them. So it's always like, okay, how am I doing with them and how they interact with the world? Because that's always the stipulation or the projection that people put onto homeschooled kids, is that they're not very social and they don't know how to handle themselves socially. And I just witnessed my kids crush it better than anyone. And I was like, oh, okay, we're okay.
Yeah. Well, that does stem from the natural tendency that people will either emotionally want to empathize with someone else or emotionally be the complete opposite of what the other person's doing. So it's like in that case, it was like, oh, you're escalating the situation. I'm going to escalate the situation, but that doesn't help anyone. So instead of doing that, just go on the opposite extreme and just be like, no, this is not going any further. And if you wanted to, I'm going to push you until you learn your lesson.
Yeah, it was really, really cool to witness.
Do you have any questions for me? Because I just got 2 last questions.
You have 2 last questions? I love it. No, I don't. I just want to celebrate your ability to ask questions. I mean, yeah, we've gone all over the place, but it's all been very cohesive and it's all like come together in this really, really powerful way. And so, I mean, kudos to you for being such an excellent interviewer and to ask these hard questions.
I'm glad you're happy because my mind is like completely like flatlined this entire time. I've got caffeine. I've got water. I don't have any sense of anything anywhere right now just because there's like all this stuff I have to get done. Well, this is important, but it's like all the other stuff. And I'm just like, don't emotionally break. So I'm glad that you're fine with it because it doesn't, my mind's not connecting it.
Of course. And I appreciate that honesty so much because, again, you, like you said beforehand, before we got on, you're like, I'm tired. It's like, yeah, okay. And you showed up anyways. And you're going to be an example to the people listening. And just like maybe I will be too, in us talking about like cyclical differences and how my energy is where it's at today. But here we are anyways, doing some great things together to the best of our capacity today.
That's
And I think you
a
did
very nice way
great.
of putting it.
I think it's so good. And I think, you know, people don't feel like they can show up if it's going to be imperfect. When in reality, the human on average is imperfect. What is perfect anyways? I always want to be an example for someone to show up in the state that they're in if it is, you know, healthy for them to do so, to show up and do the thing anyways and just allow it to be messy. Since when did messy become bad? Messy action is what gets stuff done in the world. Progress over perfection is what makes things happen. And somehow we've lost sight of that. So if we can be an example of that for somebody today, I'm all about it.
Yeah, cool. 2 questions. Who do you want to be 10 years from now? And what would you have told yourself 15 years ago?
Whew, gotta do some math now. 15 years ago, so like early 20s, I would have told myself that it is worth it to keep going. So in my early 20s, it was really hard. I was really sick and trying to accomplish a lot of things still. I was sick and still getting my education and trying to be healthy. And, you know, I was building a life with my husband already. And we had Maverick at 25, my oldest at 25.
Your son's name is Maverick?
So he is, yeah.
That is such a cool name. That is such a cool name.
Yeah, Maverick's my oldest and Corbin is my youngest. And I mean, they're 12 and 10 now, almost 13. But I would have, because sometimes you don't know if the worth it that you feel is there is actually on the other side. But regardless of what happens on the other side, you're going to build this resilience and this identity along the way that's going to serve you so much. So, you know, if it gets hard, it doesn't mean you're failing. If it plateaus, it also doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. I would just instill more of that belief so that I wouldn't have had such lows in those low moments because I wasn't sure yet if that was a part of it. Whereas now I can look back and be like, oh yeah, that absolutely had to happen, obviously. And then 10 years from now, oh my gosh, I want to be a happier, healthier, more, I love holistic success. So like, I want to be healthier, wealthier, more in love, and have a higher quality of life than I do already. And already I am so grateful that I have the things that I have in those categories, but I can see where that can all expand in a decade.
Cool. I'm still flatlined, so I'm just gonna end it there. No, that was great. I wish I had more energy. It's like I still have to edit this. I don't know how all the recording is gonna be, how like well it's gonna be, but the audio quality on my end sounds pretty good, so I don't think I'll worry about that. No, but that was great. I just wish I had more energy. I have most of an energy drink, so it's somewhat usable.
Somewhat, somewhat happening for you. Yeah, I'm almost done what will be my last bit of caffeine intake for the day. But still, depending on, again, where I am mentally and stuff, I don't know, like this happens. Do you see the redness that happens? So that is all rooted in my lack of social courage. So it started when we started talking about me and using me as an example of my fitness journey. So I, on a like neurological level, like vagus nerve level, don't feel safe talking about myself in a positive light. And so the second I start doing that, I get like red and my nervous system irregulates.
Cool. I
It's
think so.
wild and
So if we
so
talk about that
embarrassing.
more, you're gonna look like my curtains in the back.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Perfect.
100%.
Perfect. Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit. No, I'm kidding.
100%. So like so I work with Next Level University, Kevin and Alan. They're also amazing guests. If you haven't had them on your show, highly recommend.
Not yet. Yeah.
I went down, I go see them once a year and we do a live event, in-person event. And instead of just emceeing this year, I actually got to have the whole first segment and speak about self-belief, self-worth, and everything. By the time I was done, my face and all of down to like here was the color of your curtains. Definitely. Because it was the most, even though I have gone and done like keynote speeches in front of hundreds of people and things where I get a little bit, this one was like double that. And there's a lot of nuances and reasons behind that. But it's just that lack of like literal neurological safety of doing well. Yeah. It's ridiculous. It drives me nuts.
It's fascinating. I'm sorry for your loss, but that's fascinating.
Thank you.
I don't have that problem yet.
Alan actually,
Yeah.
oh yeah, Alan goes through the same thing. His face gets really red and his neck gets red when he starts being in true self. And because again, he's like me, people lash out at us frequently because of all the things we talked about. And so it's so funny. So now we challenge each other to see how red we can get and to see how far we can go. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I don't have. I don't think I've ever. Well, I've never done public speaking, so that's probably. So I'm either thinking I would socially shut down and like lose my train of thought, or I'll get really cold. I think would be what would happen. And if I get really cold, I'm built like a twig. I don't have much muscle to warm me up, so it would probably be like a couple of minutes before I can get back into it. But no, that's interesting. Yeah. Anyway, I'm still flatlined. So,
Yeah, I appreciate your time and I appreciate this conversation a lot. I'll make sure to keep this up and yeah, no stress on whenever it comes out. Just whatever it is that you do. Do you share it on social media at all?
yeah. So
Is
I'm
that
primarily on Instagram, and then I can share that onto Facebook. It'll get if once I finish everything, it'll get posted on YouTube, Spotify, which also goes to Apple, and then Facebook most likely.
well on the social media ones? Tag me in them, and then I can share them to all the
Okay.
things.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. I think I'm following you on Instagram, so that should be fine.
Awesome. I will make sure that I check for you as well because I want to follow along on your journey. I think you're doing great
please
things.
don't. No, there's too many people.
I'm going to. No, it's important. It's important. I don't do that with everybody, but people who are heart-driven, putting good things out into the world, I want to keep supporting your guys' journey because I'm on a similar one myself. And I think it's really cool. And I want to support all of your guys' podcasts as much as possible.